And we are live. Hello, and welcome everyone to Circuit Stream's Advanced AR Workflows with Unity Mars workshop. Just to make sure everyone can hear me and see me, please let me know in the chat box to the right there. Can you hear me and see me? Hello, Praveen. Nice to see you. Dayon, second. Francesca, Julie, thank you. Yes, Paul, thank you. So you can all hear me and see me. Great. So a few things before we get going. To the right of the screen, you will see a chat box. Feel free to chat with everyone who's in attendance today. Toss in your LinkedIn profiles, network and mingle. Do as you please in the chat box. There is also a questions tab right beside there. If you have any questions, please put them into the questions tab. It's easier for us to track what has come in, what hasn't been answered. So throughout this presentation, workshop, and at the end, we'll be able to answer all of those for you. Now, there is also a polls tab. This polls tab, I will be tossing in some polls just to gauge the audience and the experience of the audience here today. So yes, you have that chat, the questions, and the polls. Again, questions tab is your place to go if there's anything you would like answered from our end. Now, I do have some colleagues backstage here to help answer those questions that do come in. We'll have notably Kyle, Dayon, and Jerry in the background with some people. Say hi there in the chat. I do see Kyle had reached out. And very super exciting workshop we've got today. We've got a special guest speaker from Unity to dive into Unity Mars and some advanced AR workflows. So really looking forward to that. Now, for those of you who haven't joined us before, let me know where you're tuned in from. So I myself and our headquarters are based out of Calgary in Canada. We have colleagues located all over North America, South America, and in Asia. And currently I see some people from the US, Seattle, Oregon, Antonio from Seattle as well, Boston, Florida. Francesca, nice to see you from Italy. We have Tess from Miami, William from St. Louis, and Karen from Dallas. Good to see you, Karen. Nice to see you again. We have Arunesh from India. So for those of you who are tuning in from abroad, this workshop and webinar will be recorded. So if you do have to go to sleep or wake up in the morning for work, not a problem. We will send out this recording to everyone who is attending and who had registered. So no worries, we'll get that going. But without further ado, today we'll be covering advanced AR workflows in Unity Mars. I'll be taking about 5-10 minutes to introduce who we are and what we do here at Circuit Stream for those of you who are new here on this workshop. Then I'll take about 10 minutes to introduce you to Unity Mars, and then we'll invite our guest speaker to come on stage and dive into the nitty-gritty of the advanced AR workflows. But my name is Stefan, and I am the education and course lead here at Circuit Stream. I have over 5 years of experience in the tech industry, working with learning management systems, business integration platforms, travel IT, and now in the world of virtual reality and augmented reality. Little icebreaker about myself. I was a member of Water Polo Canada and trained with the 2008 Beijing Olympic team. I didn't go to the Olympics, but a great experience nonetheless. Today, I will be joined by Andrew Maneri, and it's truly an honor and a pleasure to have him join us today and lead that technical bit and portion, introducing you and going through the advanced AR workflows. Andrew is a senior software engineer at Unity. He's been with Unity for over 5 years now, and a little cool icebreaker about himself, he actually created a cartoon on public access cable. So if you're interested in talking to him about that, feel free to toss it into the chat or the questions tab. We would be more than happy to shed some light there. Now, a little bit about us here at Circuit Stream. So Circuit Stream was founded in 2015 when everyone was on the hype train for building VR and AR apps. We noticed a gap in helping people learn how to develop and manage these applications. And since 2015, we've taught over 30,000 people how to develop and manage these experiences in Unity. We're a team of about 20 located around the world, as you can see here, and we're all professionals and experienced in the Unity engines, Unreal, Microsoft platforms and devices, the Vive, Oculus systems and devices as well. So if you have any questions there, toss them into the chat or questions tab. More than happy to speak to that too. So CircuitStream is a Unity certified training partner, and training partners are approved based on their expertise, focus on quality education, and commitment to providing the highest level of training available. CircuitStream is also a Unity channel partner to deliver training and application development services in the architecture, engineering and construction, automotive, transportation, and manufacturing markets. Now, there's three things that we really do here at CircuitStream. And the first is education and training. And these are some of the professionals and individuals that we've had take our courses to help learn Unity, develop VR and AR applications, and how to manage these projects later on. From Apple and Hulu to America's Navy, we have Nike, Raytheon, Deloitte, Hershey's the chocolate company, and various faculty members from different educational institutions. And we typically do this through our XR development with Unity course. And I will touch on this at the end of the presentation for those of you looking to dive into this a little bit further. It's all live and online, 4 hours a week over 10 weeks. And if interested, our next course is on September 28th. Now, what differentiates us from some of the other educational providers out there is the one-on-one mentorship. It's a project-based course where you come in with an idea, a project, an issue, or a challenge that you want to create, and we support that development alongside you over the 10 weeks. And so you have something to show for by the end of the course, a portfolio to add to, a prototype to work with, or a product to show your friends and family members. Now, the second thing that we do here at CircuitStream, alongside the education and training, is XR content creation, or in other words, application development. So we work with various organizations around North America to help develop, implement, and manage VR, AR projects and experiences. And these are some of our partners that we're happy to work with. Now, in addition to the education and training and the content creation, the third thing that we work on here at CircuitStream is an XR platform that we launched winter of 2019. It allows you to host your AR and VR applications on, scale, distribute, and manage these applications, as well as track, measure, and analyze learning activities. So I will toss in a short 2-minute video for those of you who are new here on this workshop, just to highlight what this platform is about. And if you have questions, reach out to us. More than happy to shed some light on there.
Welcome to CircuitStream. Since 2015, we've taught over 25,000 people how to build innovative XR applications. Now, we're bringing everything that we've learned together into the CircuitStream platform, a central portal for everyone in your organization to experience, distribute, and even create XR content. Log into the platform and you'll be able to launch and experience your organization's XR applications with the click of a button. Our CircuitStream Hub removes all the friction of installing and updating apps by handling everything automatically in the background so your employees don't have to. While users are in XR, we capture data from the application, allowing managers to track usage, structure pilot projects, and express ROI to stakeholders. Working together with CircuitStream, we can build analytic views around your key performance indicators and the unique problem sets that you are tackling with XR. Managers can set up and control access across the organization as you expand and scale your XR applications to train employees, communicate ideas, or do something amazing that no one has even thought of before. Our goal is to give you the tools for innovation. If you have XR developers within your organization already, they can also use the platform to upload their own applications and manage them efficiently by publishing updates and tracking quality assurance issues. The CircuitStream platform is built to manage and scale across the organization, whether you are creating your applications internally or working with an outside vendor. Start experiencing, building, and scaling XR today with the CircuitStream platform.
Awesome. Well, I hope that gave you a little taste as to what that platform is about there. But now that you've learned a little bit about us, why are you all here today? What are you going to learn? Today, we'll be introducing you to advanced Mars workflows. We'll also be covering the Mars best practices, how to create simulation environments, and utilizing landmarks and forces, as well as how to script new actions. Now, I always like to ask this on all of our webinars and workshops. On a scale of 0 to 10, how much experience do you have with Unity? So I'm going to publish a poll here, and I just tossed it in. Let me know in that poll section, how much Unity experience do you have on a scale of 0 to 10? 0 being never heard of Unity, 10 being that you're the Jedi Master, the Chuck Norris of Unity, and that you'd be maybe able to come and teach some of our programs here at Circuit Stream. So I'm looking at the responses here, and it seems like it's quite an even split in balance. So it looks like there's quite a few beginners here, some advanced and experts in Unity. So it's a nice even balance, and super excited to get going with the advanced workflows there. Now, for those of you who are new to Unity and said 0, what is Unity? Unity is a free 3D development engine for building games, simulations, and experiences. It's the easiest way to begin making apps for XR. Now, XR, for those of you who are new to this, stands for extended reality. It's essentially the umbrella term for both AR and VR, augmented reality and virtual reality. Now, we here at Circuit Stream love to work with Unity. And Unity is such a great and powerful engine, and there's so many benefits and features to it that we will cover throughout this webinar. Essentially, for those of you new to Unity, 60% of the world's XR content is made with Unity. And there was 601% demand growth for real-time 3D graphic skills compared to the market overall. Now, they say there's 57% projected Unity developer job growth over the next year or so. And this year in 2020, 1.1 million US programming jobs were expected to go unfulfilled. And not only that, 1,400% projected AR VR job growth in 2020. And those of you with Unity skills are expected to earn $20,000 more than those without. And that's why we love teaching Unity, really setting everyone up with the skills that they need to succeed. Now, how does one actually go about creating their own VR or AR experience and project? Well, you come in with an idea like that light bulb to the left there, and you bring your idea into an engine like Unity. You develop and create your experience, which is then pushed out to an SDK, whether it's Oculus, the Microsoft or Steam store, and then pushed out to the relevant headsets and devices that you had built it for. Now we're going to cover Unity Mars, and I'm going to take 5 minutes here to introduce you a little bit to Unity Mars myself before we have the expert jump in here. But before I do that, I want to share a video, an introductory video, introducing you to Unity Mars, and then I'll cover it slightly, and we'll invite Andrew on stage later on. So here it goes.
What's Unity Mars? Well, certainly not the planet, but it really knows this world. Unity Mars gives you everything you need to create powerful, mixed and augmented reality experiences that interact intelligently with the real world, at any location and with any type of data. Need to visualize a place or product? Create a unique experience for an event? Train up your staff? No problem. Imagine the possibilities as you author for games, sales, marketing, and more for any device or hardware platform. With Unity Mars, you can quickly capture and assemble real-world assets like locations, objects, and props. Then, just drag and drop them and test on the fly, all without leaving the Unity editor. Unity Mars experiences are powerful, interactive, and intelligent. Build once and deploy on any AR-enabled device. Get Unity Mars now and shape the world.
Awesome. Well, I hope that gave you a good idea as to what Unity Mars is about for those of you who may be new to this. But now for me to quickly dive into it before we get Andrew here. What is Unity Mars? Well, Unity Mars is the world's first authoring solution that brings real-world environment and sensor data into the creative workflow. It provides augmented reality creators everywhere with specialized tools and streamlined workflow to deliver responsive, location-aware AR experiences into users' hands. Unity Mars experiences are really powerful, interactive, and intelligent. Experiences created with Unity Mars are fully responsive to surrounding physical space, work in any location, and with any kind of data, while also giving creators the ability to deliver these AR experiences that live up to the end user's expectations. So essentially, digital content that seems to live in and react to the real world. Now, some of the key benefits, and I'm sure Andrew will dive into more of those, are the following. So it's what you see is what you get authoring experience. So you author complex data-oriented apps visually with a customized window Mars panel for AR creators that includes tools and UI that give you the power to see, prototype, test, and visualize robust AR apps as they will run in the real world. Now, there's also responsive visual authoring, and that's essentially the procedural authoring system that uses proxies to represent real-world objects, conditions, and actions as a framework. It's creating these proxies. It's similar to creating every other game object, but it comes with actions and conditions by default by analyzing the environment. You can test in the Unity editor as well, and that seriously reduces the amount of time required to test your app. Test your AR experiences using a simulation view against a variety of examples of indoor and outdoor spaces without needing real-world data on hand or physically testing the experience in every real-world environment you want your app to work in. And fuzzy authoring. Now, Mars allows its objects with minimum and maximum variables where an object can fall or sit onto. Gizmos are used to define the minimum and maximum measurements for real-world objects rather than coding precise measurements. So with that, enough about my little intro here. I know we're diving into advanced AR workflows, but today is about just that, advanced AR workflows with Unity Mars. And I do want to take this time to invite Andrew Maneri on stage. Again, it's truly an honor and a pleasure to have Andrew join us today to lead this part of the presentation, and really looking forward to seeing what you've got here for us, Andrew. Thanks for joining us, and you're all in great hands. I'll be back. He'll take about 45 minutes with this, and then we'll wrap up with a 5-minute conclusion and a in-depth Q&A session for any questions that weren't answered. Good to see you, Andrew. Take it away.
Thank you. It looks like my webcam's on the fritz, but that is okay because we're going to jump right into the editor. Share my screen here. And jump into Unity. So we're going to jump right into Mars, or right into the Unity editor with Mars installed. And to introduce myself, I'm Andrew Maneri. I'm the content lead in Unity's XR Tools group. I spent the last few years working on the Unity Mars authoring suite and content for it. I'm very excited to dive deeper into Mars than we have shown in the past. So let's recap Mars really quickly. Unity provides the scene view and the hierarchy so that you can view and edit your content. It also has the game view so that you can see your app as users would. Now, Mars adds the Create panel, the simulation view, and controls for this. We also provide proxies that let us bring the real world into the editor, and also synthetic objects to let digital objects act as if they were in the real world. And I'll go over those in more detail later. Because we have all these things, we can even do drag and drop workflows for AR applications. So I can just drag a piece of content onto a bed, and then Mars will actually tell us, here's the kind of values you'd be looking for to replicate this in AR. And you can see it respond immediately in the sim view. So one of the most useful features of Mars is simulation environments, and today we're going to make one of our own. So the very first thing we'll do is actually jump into a simulation environment to see how they're constructed, and then work our way back up. All right, so we have one here, and also I'll jump back and just show something really cool here. So if you want to edit a simulation environment that you're in, all you have to do is hit this arrow. So some of you Unity experts might be saying, hey, this is actually the prefab editor, and you're correct. All Mars environments are prefabs, and when we create or edit environments, we're simply editing prefabs. We're going to look around the environment first. So it's a fully enclosed mesh with this kind of see-through X-ray effect going on. If we go into the roots of this environment, we're going to see a couple components. First, we have the environment settings, and in here are camera data. So Mars has a simulation, which is similar to the scene view, and a device view, which is as if you're in the environment itself. So we have settings for where those cameras are located when you switch between them. So every time I switch to a different room, I have a different camera position. We also have environment bounds, which controls how far the device view can move. It's sort of like where the users are allowed to move maximum. Below that, we have the render settings, and this is actually just a duplicate of Unity's scene lighting settings. And this is because we composite the simulation environments into the simulation view, so they need their own lighting settings, and this is just as you get with AR. So like in AR, you have your digital content, and then you have the real world. And as you all know, the real world has its own lighting. It's not digital. And then below that, we have the plane extraction settings, and these are used for generating all these authoring planes. So for example, when we've gone and dragged and dropped content onto these different surfaces, that is what these are what generates these surfaces for us. All right. So now we're going to move on to the child objects. So the first is the clipping region, and this controls the X-ray effect into the environment. I'm going to show this off here real quick. So this lets us look inside enclosed meshes, and we've designed this to be used with any sort of environment. So like things that we made that are purely digital, or point clouds, or mesh scans. And you don't have to go and process them in advance or like cut things up. Like it can be a completely sealed mesh, and you can still look inside. And the way it works, you see these different parameters for like floor height, ceiling height, and clipping offset. So one way to imagine how the X-ray effect works, I'm going to go and empty this room real quick. As you can imagine, there's sort of like this invisible cylinder in the middle of the room. And the clip offset is actually like how thick this cylinder is. And then there is a quad. I want to center this as well. And this quad always wants to be on the edge of the cylinder. It is a very big quad. And it always wants to face the camera. So you can already sort of see now like how this clipping plane actually works. So that is how we actually cut things out, is that there's this kind of invisible cylinder and quad, and they're going and cutting things out. And there's one other little detail here. I can go and like dive down deep in this room. And when I'm inside, I can see the ceiling completely. There's no cutting out effect. And the way that works is that the lower you are, the closer the clipping plane is at ceiling level. So we have this ceiling height parameter. So as long as the camera is below this, the ceiling height is the same as the clipping offset. And as we move up, this starts to get pulled back so that you actually end up with like a sort of a dollhouse view. And the same thing for the floor height. And that is why the floor is always visible even when we are in front of it. All right. So one other thing to note is that X regions aren't strictly required. So if you have an outdoor scene like this backyard, you can just disable this object. That's fine. It'll just not have anything to clip. So if your environment is not enclosed, you can turn it off. Next thing down from here is the sun. And this is just the light we use for the simulation environments. And the main thing to note, so this is a regular Unity light. And below this is the synthesized light estimator. So what this is going to do is take this lighting setting and feed it back into Mars so that I can pretend that it's a light source from AR lighting estimation. You wouldn't want to just have the digital data go directly in there. It's too perfect, and it's not going to give you quite the results you want. So those are the bare pieces that we should have in any simulation environment. Below that, and I'll re-enable the furniture now too, is the environment shell. And this includes the walls and the floor and the ceiling. And the reason that you have this separate is that one, it's easier to decorate with like a kind of a prefab room. But the other is that these have special colliders in them. So we have these objects which have special materials on them called sim environments. And they have something we call the room X-ray shader. So this reads those clipping region values and it does what like I showed with like the cylinder and the quad. Like this is what actually clips things out. It runs through a version of the standard shader, or if you're in Universal, it will run with a version of the Universal standard shader, automatically switching between them. Below that, we have these collision objects. So these line up with the colliders that you see for like wall and ceiling and floor. And the reason you want something like that is that Unity has this really great feature where if you drag and drop something into your environment, it'll stop on colliders. It's like a version of snapping. So if we didn't have any, I have this X-ray collider script here. So anything that's being X-rayed out, any collider that's in that area will be disabled. If we didn't have that and I tried to drag and drop something in there, it would just go and always sit on this like outer wall. It wouldn't be very helpful for people. Next, we have our decoration. So, and this is like all like the furniture and the cabinets and the clutter and that sort of thing. These pieces do affect like the plane generation. So like if you look here, like all these kind of decorated planes, like they do respond to like this kind of like decoration we add, and you should keep that in mind when building an environment. If you want to simulate a very clean or a very busy area, that just kind of informs how many things you should put in there. Most of these environment objects do use our version of the standard shader that can switch between universal or classic at will. A few of them actually will use the X-ray effect anyways. Like, and the way we kind of have decided to do this is like anything that's on the wall, so like a photo frame, or objects that are above chest height and are close to the wall, like these lamps. And the reason we've kind of gone with this heuristic is we found that this lets people have the greatest view of surfaces that tend to be important, which are things that are at or below chest height, while not being too busy with like everything getting cut away. And then, let's see here. One other thing I really want to point out about the content here is that no content in Mars down to the simulation environment is static. So that means like you'll never see this box checked. And that's because things in AR are never static. Like you're always like detecting things dynamically. And that means no light baking. So our simulation view, like how we get this lighting effect, we are using a post-processed here that gives us ambient occlusion. With just a hint of chromatic aberration, you can see it on the edges here. And it's just to give things this little bit more of a simulation effect. All of our geometry is constructed with these chamfered edges. And if you look real close, you can kind of see them. Actually, you'll probably see it better in here. I'll enable wireframe. See, like these real thin chamfered edges. And the reason we have those, and it's not necessary, but it plays a lot nicer with ambient occlusion to make the edges pop, while still being subtle. So a key thing to remember with most simulation environments is that your content is the star, not the environment. So keep your environments like helpful, but not distracting. All right, so below the furniture are the generated planes. Kind of gone over what they do before, so it's like we can go and use these to author things, and I'll show what they're constructed out of. So every generated plane has a mesh applied to them. And then they also have what we call synthesized data, and I'll go over this more later. But the purpose of this, though, is to actually let the Mars database know where everything is in space and to treat it like something in the real world. Can everyone still hear me? Great. Okay, so let's see. Going over the synthesized objects, we have all of these different traits. So like semantic tags saying like it's a plane, it has bounds, it has alignments, it has a mesh. It also has this interaction target. So the interaction target is what lets us actually do this view of things that we can author against and like what allows us to drag and drop. Like it always looks for this sort of interaction target script. All right, so now we're going to go and let's see. Right, so there's a lot of ways to make a simulation environment. So one thing you could do is you could just go and duplicate an environment and clear everything out. So the first thing we should do is actually find out where an environment is located. So if you go to your, in Mars, you'll get a folder when you install called content. And then there is a folder called defaults shared. There's lots of good things in the content folder, so I encourage everybody to explore it. You'll have materials in here. Like some things are just sort of like debug things. So you have like image marker materials. You'll have the sort of shared object material, everything that's used for the simulation environment. So things with like the different X-ray shaders added. And you also have a lot of handy different object prefabs. So you'll have things like cubes and cones, a lot of it similar to the Unity prefabs, but with our chamfering applied. Along with like a head mesh, you have HMD references, kind of a generic smartphone and controller. And then if you go into the simulation environments folder, you'll have all these different folders for things like bedroom, factory, museum, office. And these are where all the different environments are located. So like if I open up the bedroom folder, in the top level here, you'll see all the different simulation environments. And you'll notice one thing here is like any prefab with this environment tag is what gets picked up as a simulation environment. And then inside this prefab folder is all of the sort of pieces used inside that environment. It's like any kind of like beds you might want in a bedroom, the ceiling fan, the actual like environment shells for the different rooms, that sort of thing. So I'm not actually going to go and I said like one way you can make an environment is to duplicate and remove all the objects. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go and start from scratch. I think it's just a little bit more educational. So even in the situation where we're going from scratch, we're still going to use sort of a base prefab, and that's the simulation environment base. I'm going to open it up here and show what's in here. So what's in this environment is the environment settings, the plane settings, the clipping region, and the sun. So kind of all the essentials for making an environment. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and right-click this, and I'm going to say create prefab variant, and we'll call this new environment. I'm going to add my environment tag. And then I'm going to tell Mars by going into Window, Mars, Developer, refresh, not that one, try again. Window, Mars, Developer, Update Simulation Environments. And now on our list, we'll see new environments. There's nothing in here because we duplicated a sort of a blank environment. And the reason that we want to make a prefab variant is that any changes we make to this sort of base object will get automatically reflected in any kind of variance. So like every one of our Mars environments is a variance of this base. And the reason for that is if we ever decide that there needs to be like some sort of major change to like the base construction of an environment or a new component added, we can just make the change in here and all the environments will get updated automatically. So it's a good way to make environments that'll be future-proofed. So we add our environment tag, and now we'll jump in. So we could use one of these base shells that I showed before to make an environment. We always call them environments. And then most of our environment objects have, if size is important, the size will actually be reflected in the name. So like these environments actually have like their square footage listed here. So I can drag one of these in here and start building it out. If you want something more custom, which is what I'll do, you can actually go and just start dragging in your primitives. And handy reference is 9 feet is about 2.75 meters. So we're going to go and make our room about 2.75. We'll go and eyeball the sort of thickness, and we'll start with the floor footprint. Move this out of the way so we get a better view of what we're doing. And then we'll build the walls as well. So this is our floor. We'll make one wall. Make this about, also about maybe like 10 feet tall or so. So we'll go just a little bit more than that. And then we'll make this nice and thin. It's like building any other kind of Unity environment. Move this up here. And we can start applying our simulation materials here. So if I go and add a simulation wall to our wall object and simulation floor to our floor. So you move around, we can already see it's starting to be cut out. So our room's going to be a little bit smaller than the one that we base this off of. So we're actually going to go and pull in our clip offset just a little bit, so it's inside the room. I find about 3/4 is a good reference. I think the ceiling height is fine right now. I'm just going to go ahead and move these out. Center this. It's really easy to just build these out real quick. Right about there. So now we have a view inside the room. And then we'll make a ceiling too. Right about there. So we'll put this in what we call our environment shell. Drag all the objects in here. And then we'll go and add the colliders too. So an easy way to add the colliders is to just go and, like I can just duplicate the floor. If I add a box collider, Unity will automatically size box colliders to the bounds of the mesh. So I don't even have to kind of change any settings here. It's just sized how it should be right away. We'll move all of our rendering things here. And then we'll add our X-ray collider. There's our floor. We can do the same thing for the walls. We can actually even do this in on a large scale. Since they all have the same components, we can remove them all at once. Every one of these should have X-ray collider. They do. All right, so now we have our environment shell built out. And now we'll decorate the room with furniture. So I'm just going to go and grab a few pieces in here. So I'm going to go into my bedroom folder. And since this is a fairly small room, we're not going to go ahead and do like a king size bed or anything like that. We're just going to grab a twin. We'll keep it. We'll use a better conditioned twin bed. And we can just eyeball it, stick it up against the wall here, maybe against the side here. And then lastly, we'll add like a nightstand. We can stick this guy in here. So here's our environment, and maybe we'll put like another, we'll grab a boombox from our factory environment and put it on top of the nightstand. So drag this in here, stick it up on top of here. So here's our environment. And then we'll actually go and save this real quick. And then we can go and refresh the environment to see what we're looking at. It's looking pretty good. And the one thing to note about the lighting is that, actually I haven't set this up yet, so I'm going to go back into the shell. So all of our renderers for like the wall and the ceiling, what we tend to do is actually just disable the casting of shadows. And the reason we do this is that because the walls are X-rays, it feels natural for the light to just shine through. You get shadows. It gives the impression of a window without having to go and really do a much more complicated lighting setup. So if I jump back in here now, we should see shadows are being cast. And you get just the impression of shadows, just enough to kind of sell the effect. The walls still receive shadows, so like, yeah, that tends to be like the real fast way to get nice lighting and shadows in the scene, is just to make the walls and ceiling not occlude. So we have our objects in here, and we tweaked our X-ray settings already. So the next thing we'll do is go and record some, we'll add our authoring planes to the scene. So we'll go into here. We can just click Extract Planes. So it's going to go and do a bunch of raycasts. And then it's going to process them. This will take just a second. Now we have them. I'll save my scene and I'll jump back in here so we can take a look at what we've got. And that should be pretty good. We'll go and click here. Yeah, so we have like a surface on the bed. You see, like it's super aggressive. So like it's getting like this whole like vertical plane here. It's getting this surface. It's getting like the size of the bed. And this may not be totally reflective of what a user will get. So if you're doing a very large environment, we recommend generating them because it can be a chore to go through. But if you're doing a smaller environment, we actually recommend that you just go through in device play mode. And actually, I should switch to my device view. And as I move around, it'll start discovering planes. I'm going to leave this environment real quick, and I'm going to turn on my plane visualizer so I can see what I'm capturing. And as I move around, the planes will start getting captured. And then I can go into environment here, and I can click Save Planes from Simulation. It'll ask if I want to destroy my previously generated planes. That's fine. And you see, like, I captured just 2 before. That's what I have here. So if you're doing a small environment, we recommend you do that because you can capture much more like what we expect the user to see. And we'll actually like go through these planes now. So we have all these different parameters, and I'll talk about synthesized data now. So if I pull up Mars database viewer, and if you haven't seen this before, I recommend you take a look. This shows us all the data that Mars knows about. So everything that goes into Mars is separated into trackable data, which are like kind of the main things that a device will pick up. Like, here's all of the planes, here's all of like the faces, here are the synthesized objects, here's the meshing data, and then those get broken down into traits. So then we also have a view of everything. So like for each plane, they have this semantic tag for plane. Some of them will have a semantic tag for floor, or an object will have a semantic tag for user. Everything will have a pose. Everything has, like, lots of things have bounds or geolocation. So having all this data means that we can go and actually determine like how close two things are, even if they're very different types. Like, how close is a user to a plane? How close is a user to an object, without having to go and make specialized code for each of those types. And synthesized data is the same thing. So synthesized data, you'll have like these traits that correspond to each one of these little values. And their job is to go and grab data from the digital scene and feed it into the database. So for example, the pose will go and grab this game object's transform, and it'll just feed it back into the database. Or it'll grab its scale for the bounds, or it'll grab its rotation and kind of chop it up into these different like horizontal, up, down, left, or right. Or we have these tags where we're actually just typing in like whatever we want. And you can do super cool things here. Like, you can just go and actually like take this plane on the bed and tag it as bed. And then you can go and simulate experiences where you actually have object detection. Like, okay, like if I know my object detector can see these kind of semantic tags, I can also simulate that. So this is a really powerful feature, and I recommend people take full advantage of it, because you can really go a long way to simulate really powerful AR hardware without having it. And then one other note here is that all synthetic data requires either a simulated object or a synthetic object. Simulated objects don't automatically go into Mars. You have to have like the camera go over them first. It's much more about simulating the discovery process that your device will have. A synthesized object will always go in there. So for example, if you had a synthesized object on like the boombox power button, as soon as you knew where that boombox was, you'd want that data to be available to Mars. Like, okay, power button is here, so I can place some UI elements. And one other thing I want to show off, and I'm going to go back into our first bedroom environment, is if you place a timeline into Mars, and I'll switch back to simulation view here. You place a timeline into Mars, it'll play automatically, and that's how you get these things like moving fan blades. And the other neat thing you'll get is that if you put synthesized data on timelines, you'll get moving data. So you can make really interactive simulation environments. Like, you can go into the factory here, you can go and set up a timeline of like objects moving along like these conveyor belts, and really get a rich simulation going. So now I'm going to jump back out into our regular Unity scene, and I'm going to show off two less talked about features so far, which are forces and landmarks. I'm fine with our current visualizers. I'm going to jump into our living room scene here. So forces and landmarks address ways to work with features of one or more proxies. And the question is when to use one or the other. So landmarks are about specific known things. And like, this can be like the landmark on a face, like, hey, like, where is the person's nose, the eye, or it can be the landmark of a plane, like give me like an edge or a point that is closest to something else. The system is fully customizable, so new landmarks can be made. Like, we made it work for like faces and bodies and plane shapes. So it's really just like, here's sort of important data that's inside of a specific proxy. Forces, on the other hand, are when you want to model relationships, but you don't have specific things. So you want to set up a more generalized way for objects to behave with one another. I think most importantly, to prevent overlap. And we're going to start with the forces example. So let's say we have a piece of AR content, and this can be like a sci-fi lamp. I'll go and find my lamp real quick here. This crazy thing. And it's asking us what we want to make it. We're going to say like, okay, let's make sure it shows up on this table. In our scene view, we have our object. I'm going to scale it down because it's just a bit too big. We'll go maybe like 0.5. Nope, not 5 points. And let's move it up so it's on top of the plane. Let's say we had something else. So normally with proxies, what happens is that you have this concept of data exclusivity. So if we're placing content on a surface, we'll say, I'm reserved, nothing else can go on this plane that I found. The problem is we're leaving a lot of plane real estate on the table here, like that. See what I did there? So if you could put other things here, but because we've already reserved it for this lamp, nothing else can go there. Alternatively, we can say read only, which normally means, okay, I just want to know where it is, but I'm not going to put anything. Forces lets us start to share space between different objects. So if I kept it at read only and decided, like, okay, I'm going to go and like drop our antenna onto here. And I'll grab our antenna object and we'll just go ahead and drag it onto this table. All right. What will happen is we'll have its overlap. Like it's going to look bad. We're not going to be able to separate them out. So this is where forces will come in. So I can go into here. I go into proxy, and you'll see like under proxy, you have this thing called filter. If I stretch this window out just a little bit, now I'll actually see that there are a bunch of different tabs. So the one we're looking at right now is forces. We can click add force. And there's all sorts of different kind of like general rules we can apply here. And this one we're going to add as occupied region. So what forces does is it sort of models all of the different sort of things in the scenes, like any planes that are discovered automatically get a force. These objects we make get their own forces. And it's a sort of a spring system. So nothing really wants to be overlapped. So everything will keep getting pushed away until we hit the lowest possible energy. So in this case, this region is trying not to be overlapped with anything else. So I'm going to go and make it fit the object. And I want to show off a really cool Unity handle here. So most people are familiar with the transform, the rotate, and the scale. But we also have one called the rect tool. And this lets you just go and drag things up. So this is a lot easier than trying to like scale something to fit. It's always centered. So if you're trying to sort of describe a volume, I recommend you take a look at this tool. It's pretty amazing. So now we're saying nothing can go in this area. We're going to add one other force to this as well, which is the snap to plane. This one automatically knows about like sort of the plane proxy we made. And this will make sure that it doesn't get pushed off to the floor or anything. Like, no, like we do need to keep at least our parent proxy in mind. And then we'll add this same forces to the antenna. So the occupied region and the snap to plane. If I go to my inspector here, I'll make this fit as well. And then if I go into play mode, we'll actually see these things resolve out. Go down, take a look at my plane. And they are no longer overlapping, so we'll take just a second. And you can do this in real time, so it can always be updating, or you can say just figure it out once, in which case it'll be visible for just a second as it figures out what the lowest energy solution is. So one thing to note is that forces bind the content and the proxy together a little bit more tightly. So while a plane proxy normally represents the tabletop, and then you have content childlet to this, once you add a force, it becomes more about the actual content and how it, because it's going to go and move it around to fit. So like if you tried to build like a surface here, the surface would also move around as like the forces are trying to resolve. So it definitely becomes, instead of like sort of a plane proxy, becomes a proxy about the thing on the table. Now we're going to move on to landmarks, and we'll start with a horizontal plane. We're going to give it a size condition. And the first thing we want to do is we want to visualize this plane. So we're going to add a build surface component. So to do that, we add like a mesh filter, a mesh renderer, and we add a material to it. And we're going to go on. Then we add the Mars component build surface. So you're not going to see it in this list right away. So build surface goes and controls the object's transform. And we have this concept of actions that sort of work on the same kind of game object data. So in this case, we call them like transform actions. So because we already have this thing that sets the pose, we need to replace the set pose action with something else, like fitting it to a head, stretching it to the floor, building a surface, which is what we want. So if you don't see the action you normally expect, look in the replace menu. We have a horizontal plane, and let's see where it's showing up here. Showing up over here, and actually we want to go and match it more closely with this table. So we're going to go and optimize it for this surface, and now it should be showing up here, and it is. Great. So we have our surface here. Now we can actually turn off our plane visualizer because it should be just showing us our pure digital content. So now we want to add a landmark. So we're going to add another Mars component, which is landmarks action. And then you click add landmark. So we can say, like, give me the center of the plane, give me the bounding box of like the polygon, give me the actual center of the AR data, or we can actually do like closest pointer edge to something else. So we'll do like point. And by default, it's going to say the closest point to the main camera. And then you can just start putting content under here. Like, so I'm going to add this like cube under here. Let's make it a little bit smaller. Like, have our tiny cube here, and this is closest to the camera. So if I go and run this in device mode or in play mode, this thing's actually going to, as soon as I get this surface, we're going to have a cube that stays on the surface and always is like the closest edge to the camera. So the real powerful thing here is that you can replace the target. So we can go and say, like, give me the closest target to another proxy. Then have two things that are always trying to be close to each other. For example, if you're trying to build like a digital bridge or really make a connection between two types of data. So let's do that real quick. We're actually just going to go and duplicate our object and see if we get another match. We do, that's great. And then in the closest here, we're going to say that we are closest to this cube. And this one is closest to the other cube. And then if you go back into our play mode, we got our first table, our second, and sure enough, as soon as we get our matches, the objects line up. Where'd you go? Oh, we lost the match, that's why. Everything probably got a little bit too big. Got the first plane. The second one, this time it's the floor. There we go. Yeah, so these objects always like to be as close as possible to one another. So if that seems overwhelming to set all that up, don't worry. We got you. We have a new Mars workflow called Rules that streamlines a lot of these really complex processes. These are the kind of things you need to model AR, but it's definitely not what you need to actually author it. And it's streamlined for the common AR interaction patterns. So I'm going to go and clear out these objects. I'm going to bring up our new window. So we're going to go into Window, Mars, Proxy Rule Set, and click Add Rule. So by default, it says this rule is for every horizontal surface to do something. We can say, like, add content. We want to build a surface. So remember, before we had to add like a mesh filter and do all that. Now we're just saying, I want to build a surface with like the standard material. And what it does immediately is it adds that surface for literally every horizontal surface in the scene. Let's switch back to simulation real quick here. I only want to do one, so I'm going to change this to from every to one. So on one horizontal surface, the standard material. I want to be a little bit more specific about what I'm doing, so I can double click this object to actually go and change the proxy. And I can go and add a plane size condition here. Let's do the default one, minimum, maximum size. And now we're getting this area over here, and that's fine. And then we can also go and choose to spawn an object. So we can add our cube again, cube module. And I can go in here and change what we're dealing with here as well. So I want to scale it down. And you can see all of your content still shows up in the scene view when you have it highlighted. Keep this over here for now. And one thing to note is these rules are very plain, like kind of plain text, but underneath it all, it's still the proxy system. So if we go and show the hierarchy, everything is here on one horizontal surface. do like the build surface action and go and place your cube. Now, the other cool thing is there's this on ... So normally it doesn't have any kind of like rule where it's supposed to place. It's just where the transform says it is. But if we click here, we can see all of the plane landmarks are available. So if we hit like point, it immediately goes and sets up a plane landmarks action, including like the camera interaction automatically. So it's saying spawn this on the closest point to the main camera. If you do the closest edge, it still goes closest to the camera, but it would go and like look at the center point of each of these edges. So it's another way to kind of have like more like centered interactions. Yeah, and then we can do this with another proxy, so we can add another rule. So for on one horizontal surface, the plane size, let's go and show you like just how fast this goes. Like it's so fast to build out this like kind of these Mars interactions with this new workflow. And we'll add another content. And we're going to add another cube module. Make this one like tall and skinny, so like a weird little column type thing. We'll say like on the closest point as well. So what we're going to do differently this time is that we can actually go and drag and drop these references into the inspectors. So for example, I can say, I'm spawning this on the closest object. I can actually say, make it go closest to our proxy right here. So you can actually just drag and drop from this menu. So you still have all of your nice Unity transform values. So yeah, we rebuilt our interaction from before in just a few clicks, like way less digging down to the hierarchy, just able to go and kind of click through here and just seeing the data you need to see in the context that you need it. The other cool thing I'm going to show here, I'm just going to remove this real quick, is that you can go and if we change what kind of proxy we have, like if I said like I want to do something on a face mask, all of those landmarks now change to the landmarks appropriate to that type of proxy. So in this case, like left eye, left eyebrow, lip, mouth, ear, all of that is immediately available. We don't need to build a surface anymore. And the same thing with like an image marker. If I switch this to an image marker, all of kind of like the plane landmarks come back. So really you can switch between other types of data and have the context you need right away. So I think I'm going to toss it back to Stefan here. This is kind of like the real cool new things you can do with Mars. I've been super happy to share this with you, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Andrew. That was wonderful. So I'll take about 5 minutes here to quickly wrap up the presentation here, and then we'll invite Andrew back on stage just to answer some of those questions that we have in the questions tab and that we haven't answered. But thank you again, Andrew. Truly great to have you. Looking forward to answering some of those questions we have in the questions tab and throughout the chat. But I know we kind of flew through this quite quickly. We only have such a short amount of time. And for those of you looking to really dive deeper into this, we would be more than happy to have you with us in any of our courses to help you learn more. If you have any questions after this, feel free to reach out to myself, Dayon, Kyle, Jerry in the background. We'd be more than happy to help you out. But essentially, no matter what your interest is, if it's a personal interest in applying it to work, upskilling, or maybe changing careers, we would love to have you with us in any of our courses there. We had Shannon Bailey as a complete beginner take our course, and now she's applying this to work and has truly learned a lot over the period of 10 weeks. If you're looking to bring this back to work, we had Derek Martin, Senior Engineering Manager at Omnicell and Director at Direct Technologies, take our course, and now he's working with this technology at his workplace. And if you have a team or a group looking to learn more, creating your own applications and how to manage these projects in the future, we do offer private team training sessions. We had the US Navy with us last year. Faculty members from different universities join us, and we would love to have you with us if you are interested in diving deeper into this. Now, for those advanced Unity professionals here, those of you who are really skilled in AR and VR, we have an XR Project Accelerator course really to polish up and touch up those projects that you're working on, a capstone project. It's all live and online, 8 weeks long with 48 hours of instruction, 24 hours in class, and 24 hours of private mentorship sessions one-on-one to help you design, touch up, and polish up your projects. October 20th is the next course. Feel free to check it out on our website to learn more. You can download the syllabus, and the full price of the course is $44.50. Now, for those beginners here on the workshop, if you're looking to get started with Unity and XR development, we have our flagship XR Development with Unity course. This is all live and online in real time with our instructors who are all XR developers working with organizations and recycling it back into the course. It's 10 weeks long, 4 hours a week, 3 in class, and 1 hour private session to work on your project. And September 28th is the next course. We only have 7 seats remaining. So if you're interested, feel free to give us a shout, download the syllabus, or apply at our website. September 28th is the next course, and the price is $39.50 there. Now, what can you expect to learn in that XR Development with Unity course? Essentially, using Unity for making AR and VR apps. You'll also learn the fundamentals of C# coding to optimize your project. And again, 4 hours per week over 10 weeks with a dedicated one-on-one support and mentorship session to help your personal projects. Now, we do offer payment plans and financing options to help manage this as well, from 3-month payment plans, 6-month payment plans, and 12-month payment plans for both of our courses that we have. Now, for the beginner course, the XR Development with Unity course, there's no experience required. So newbies have no fear. We welcome everyone from all walks of life, and our passion is to help teach this to all. Now, again, if you're interested, feel free to download the syllabus to check it out or apply now. It's at circuitstream.com/course. Now I'm going to, I do see Andrew still on stage here. So we'll get Andrew to hop back on and help answer some of the questions that we may have left hanging there. But really looking forward to answering those questions and maybe to having some of you with us in our next course.
All right, so I'm going to
open it up for Q&A.
Yep, great. Thank you. So I'm seeing a couple questions here. Let's see. The first one I have is from Jason. I'm a film student and I want to design an AR experience for film. I want to use Mars to develop AR for a haunted house. Any idea on how Mars can be used to develop narrative structure focused on storyboard and narrative movements? And absolutely. Actually, I'm going to share my screen again real quick here. And I'm going to pull up a photogrammetry environment here. So this is one we had captured by Reality IO for a Memorial Court in San Francisco. So this is a photogrammetry environment. We've added a large image marker to simulate AR relocalization. And I'm going to go ahead and pull up one of my pieces of template content here. So I actually have a demo for this very purpose. So I'm very excited to show it off. It's in M&E. So in here, I've gone and I have a proxy that looks for this image marker. And on top of it, it's gone in. So I have a proxy for the image marker, which lines up for the proxy here in this environment. I'm going to disable this real quick. So image marker proxy matches with the image marker in the simulation environments. Because I know where this is in reference to other things, I can actually place my proxy or my photogrammetry model as a reference model. And then I can have things like I can have artists go and like sort of redecorate it, like add a bunch of like digital contents like the gates and redecorate things to make it look like a sci-fi environment. I also have this object right here called the crawler. And this is a Unity timeline object. So if we go to general timeline. So because I know I have like the photogrammetry reference, I can actually go and just directly animate an object within the proxy. So in this case, I have the crawler jump up. The crawler has animation rigging pieces for actually going and targeting a user, which is a different proxy. So it actually has like a character that jumps up part of a narrative and like looks at you. It's interacting in this environment. And then Mars also has something we call the walkthrough system, and I don't have enough time to go through it completely, but it is a way of doing step-by-step interactions in AR. So in this case, like there's the first step. We made this originally for training, but it works great for pretty much any kind of experience. So the first one's relocalize to know where we are in space. Second one is look towards City Hall, which would be looking towards this point. And then once we see it, it activates the crawler object. So if you start your AR experience, I'm going to go and disable it, close this timeline window. So I start this window. As soon as the user is looking up here, the crawler jumps up. So if they're looking away, that object stays disabled. It's a really fast and easy way to guide users through the process. So rather than having everything be a strict timeline, you go and put all of your narrative beats in this walkthrough. So like look towards City Hall. Now you see the monster jump up. So like none of the major beats get missed. And you can chain these together. I've done cinematic VR in the past, and the trickiest part is controlling the user gaze. And that is why in these walkthroughs, each of these steps has different triggers. So relocalize checks to make sure has its proxy been found. Look has a gaze trigger, making sure the user is looking at this point in City Hall. And then complete. So we have lots of different triggers. You can make your own. That's the real fast way. I have a longer demo I go through where I walk through this sort of like cinematic use case. Let's see. Next question. Looks like we already got that one. Let's see here.
So I've got one here from Antonio, and I'll toss it on the screen so you can check it out. But
yeah,
can Reflect and Mars be used in tandem?
Yes. So we've been doing some internal tests. We have some Reflect demos in progress now, where like people are going like loading Reflect demos, like Reflect buildings, like on like a tabletop, so like you can have like multi-user AR looking at stuff. We're also looking at ingesting the Reflect data to actually build out like simulation environments or things that you can relocalize against. We don't have that yet, but like we're looking into that because it's Reflect models give you a lot of really powerful semantic data, like down to like the material that like walls and like different things are made out of. So like our initial tests say yes, and we are making sure that these like we're looking into these workflows.
Perfect. Let's see what else we got going on here. And so one from Ross, I'm not too sure if you answered this one. It's the simulation of a real outside environment. Did you just go through that one?
Yeah, that's the photogrammetry environment. So
perfect.
Yeah, photogrammetry works. Yeah, you can pull in data from Map Provider. We have support with Mapbox right now to actually pull in like meshes there. So we've done quite a few options there.
Perfect. Now I did see one earlier. It was, what are some use cases that you can use with or do with Unity Mars?
So I'm going to give the real vague answer first, that you can do everything with Mars. Like Mars is designed as sort of like the design language and the holistic solution for everything. That's why that is why it is so flexible, that like we want to satisfy everything. Yeah, like we've done film examples, we've done like training examples in industry, we've done games. It really is a sort of like there is a common theme to how you solve problems in AR, and we are targeting all of them.
Perfect. And then we got one from Nicholas here recently. Can you bring volumetric data into Mars? Example, depth kit.
So right now you can pull it in through Mars works on top of AR Foundation. So if you want to have like the depth occlusion manager from ARKit that Unity provides through AR Foundation, that will give you like the body stenciling and the depth map. Like you just add that component into Mars. It's the same workflow.
Okay, that's pretty cool. And then I see Dayon tossed in a question here as well. And we didn't touch upon Reasoning API, but what's that used for? And what's a great example of using Reasoning API in a project?
So we actually end up using Reasoning APIs in every Mars demo. We just don't talk about it. So I'll share my screen again one more time. So if I go into like this bedroom scene and I say like I'm going to go and place a piece of content on the floor. Like, let's see, it's a good piece. I'll just toss this gear back on the floor. Place this here. We have gear on the floor. This floor semantic tag is actually coming from a reasoning API. So a reasoning API is a script. So most of our actions and conditions will act on one piece of Mars data at a time. So when we have in our database, our actions and conditions will be I care about this points or a semantic tag or a pose or a bounds. Conditions always operate on one. Actions can operate on many. In reasoning APIs, what they do is they look at all the data holistically. So for what a reasoning API for the floor does is it looks at every plane in the scene, and it will just look for one that's sufficiently large and low, and it adds that floor semantic tag. It only does that when something is actually asking for it. So it's sort of on-demand, filling of the gap of AR data.
Mm-hmm. That's pretty neat. I like it. Now, are there any questions that you saw or you want me to keep tossing them towards you?
I just keep tossing them at me.
All right. Well, this one's right for you from Asif. Question for Andrew, and I'll toss it up on the screen here. He's an aerospace engineer and software engineer, so he wants to bring in complex engineering 3D models into XR. For example, an aircraft engine, maybe that highlights different components with interactivity for students. Is it possible with Mars?
Yeah, it's certainly possible with Mars. It's also the biggest challenge you'll have there is getting if it's a really high def model, actually getting the data crunched down, and that's one of the things that Reflex takes into account with CAD data is getting that data down. So actually going and properly lotting or reducing the polys in your data is the biggest challenge. But yeah, once it's in Unity, it's certainly it's very easy to use with Mars.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. Then we got a recent one a few seconds ago from Jason Dedrick. Start the live answer here. Any plans for API patch with GPT-3 for spatial data, predictive text in real world, and procedural generation for triggers with interaction and spatial feedback? That's a mouthful.
That sounds really cool. And that's another place where reasoning APIs would come in. So the reason you'd use a reasoning API is that it gives you all of this data in a way that machine learning can ingest. So short answer is no, but that would be something that we would encourage users to try. In reasoning APIs, it'd be the right way to pull in all this all the data that Mars currently knows about an environment and let GPT do something cool with it.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. And so no, Jerry got most of the questions there. Thanks, Jerry, for being in the background and answering those.
There's one other question I wanted to answer.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sirens. So I saw one. Let's see. How does the simulation environment help in developing for AR? The 3D models I use as proxies are not exactly how my real world objects are. And I lied. I'm going to share my screen again. So the trick with the simulation environment, especially when you're in play mode, you have the planes visualized from point cloud. We are aware that the data in your scene is not going to be exactly the same. So as we're moving around, we're discovering data as your device would. So even though we have this bed model, it's not actually reading the data directly off of it. We're doing raycasts. We're building out the data as a device would. So it's not perfect data. It is kind of thing you get on a device. And we have lots of different environments that you can test out your experience in lots of different places to make sure hey, this experience I authored in a tabletop, is it going to be in a tabletop on 10 different environments? So that really is, that is how the simulation view helps. We do understand that challenge of, it's not exact, and that's also why our conditions always have a range. If I go and say put something on this bed here, it doesn't just say I'm looking for a plane of exactly this size. I'm looking for a plane of a size range. This is the fuzzy authoring part where it's okay, even if I was in a known location and I looked at it over and over, if I'm doing phone-based AR, the data is going to be different every time. So it really does need to be in this sort of range of values.
Beauty. All right. Anything else that caught your eye there,
Andrew? I'll do one more pass up and down. Let's see.
Oh, there's this one from, go ahead. Did you find something?
Yes, let's see. Completed your Mars project. Do you need to keep your subscription? The short answer is no, you can still do new builds without the Mars subscription. You're not going to have access to like the SimView and stuff though. So like if it's just like a maintenance build, like, oh, I need to do a bug fix, like yes. If you really need to go back in and start tweaking things, you'd probably want to get your subscription back up.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
For the question, what does the X-ray collider do? So the basic idea of the X-ray collider is that Unity has sort of a drag and drop workflow into the scene view. If we are making surfaces get see-through with the X-ray system, we don't want them to be a collider for the drag and drop workflow. Like we want to be able to drag like furniture directly into our environment to build it. So the X-ray collider will turn those off like and back on within a single frame so that we can drag all of our environment pieces in.
Perfect. So that one's answered. I'm not sure if you filter through not answered, there's a couple there. And Jason Dedrick with a new question here. I'll toss it live so we could check it out. Any advice for debugging phone purchasing? I assume new Sony phone with 3 lenses of camera may cause adjustment between Android uses and final build.
So I mean, for Android phone purchasing, I normally would stick with like the Pixel because that's like sort of Google's reference model for like Android phones. iPhone is pretty simple because it's an iPhone. Like everybody's going to have the same one for iOS. So yeah, I would say Pixel on Android and then iOS and iPhone is great. I also do testing with like the Galaxy Note. It has like their own time of flight sensor. It tends to work pretty similar. Like they get planes slightly differently because the sensor is being used for it. But yeah, you should be okay with whatever device you have.
Alrighty, yeah, and I was gonna say you can filter with what wasn't answered, but it looks like we did cover most of these questions here. Let's check out the chat. Yes, we got Dayon here. Question for Andrew. What's the most impressive AR project that you saw from a solo developer so far? Interesting.
So like a single person or I guess like a single company would not be a solo developer.
It's a tough one. I'm sure you've seen quite a few.
Yeah, it's hard for me to think about solo developer because right now I think of most impressive AR application. I think of like the Dr. Seuss people, like Sugar Creative. Like that's not a single developer, but like that's like one of the most impressive like Mars use cases I've seen so far. It's like, oh, like they do this whole like cartoon world that like sort of shows up in your like phone like that one's pretty amazing. Sorry, yeah, my head's not quite in like the indie spot right now.
Oh, no worries at all. No worries at all. And then we had Ross here with a new question. Where can I get more information on using Mapbox for creating simulated environments?
This one, you should just contact us directly. This is still like a in progress sort of thing we're working on. Like we've done some demos with it previously, but yeah, just get in touch with us.
Yeah, feel free to reach out to us, Ross. We'll forward it to Andrew, or connect with him on LinkedIn. I'm sure he's cool with that. Alrighty, so I think we covered most of it. Any other questions that we haven't answered here? Feel free to toss it in the chat or in the questions tab. We still have 5-10 minutes or so.
Let's see here.
Let's check it out. Yeah, I think we got most of them here. Hey, anything that you see, Andrew?
No, the unanswered questions are. I think we've covered them with other answers. So I think we're pretty good now.
Perfect. And Nick did just toss in a question here.
Oh, let's see.
Will Unity add a Mars tutorials on the Unity website?
Yes, I'm working on those now.
Yeah, it'll be there, Nick. We got you.
ETA soon, not within like the next week or anything, but we're working on it. Like it's yeah.
Perfect.
And then how does Mars compare to Buphoria? So Buphoria is more of like it has some authoring tools, but it's more of like about the data it's providing. Like, so it has like really nice like object detection. It has really good like image marker detection. Mars is really designed to take those sort of like pieces of data from any software or hardware source and just give you a consistent authoring experience around it. So it's not really an apples to apples comparison. Like Mars is sort of a higher level authoring framework.
Right. That makes sense. And I think we answered this earlier, but we weren't too sure as a team here from Arunesh. He said he couldn't find anything on the website, but for Mars, is there a student discount? Do you happen to know about that?
We understand that there are a lot of students and teachers and things really excited to use Mars. We are looking into it.
Yeah, in the works.
Yeah.
Awesome. Perfect. And then Jason, if I understand the question correctly, what is best online tutorial service that you can offer or maybe refer to? And I assume it's related to Mars or AR. If you could confirm that, Jason. Mars, yes.
Yeah. So I mean, there's Circuit Stream, which is excellent. So like there was a previous Mars workshop here that Dan Miller did, I believe, and that is really good content. There's other videos you can find of Mars online. We've done some blog posts. The learn content we're working on is probably the next thing that you'd really want to like look for in terms of like tutorials of like walking through like each step.
Perfect. And I think that might be it. Oh, I see Jason is typing, so he's probably got a juicy question cooking for us. Thanks. No, you're welcome, Jason. All righty. Well, with that, Arunesh is also typing. We'll see if that's a question. But I think we might wrap up here shortly. Yeah, thanks for answering. Thank you, Andrew.
Yeah, my pleasure.
But yeah, so I guess we'll wrap up here. We'll see if there's any other questions that come in within the next minute or so. But Andrew, legend, the man, thank you very much. It was a pleasure to have you with us and to lead this. Hopefully you'll come back and shed some more light on the new features that might come out for Mars. For everyone still tuned in here, thank you everyone for joining. If this was a little too advanced, feel free to check out our on-demand webinar that we hosted probably a couple months ago by Jerry. Dayon might be able to toss that on-demand workshop there. There is also a Google Docs form for those of you who would like to connect and network with each other. Dayon just tossed it in the chat. If you have any questions that weren't answered, feel free to reach out to myself, to Kyle, to Dayon. We'd be more than happy to forward those to Andrew, to maybe some other Unity members, or to have our instructors answer those for you. But it was a pleasure. Great having you again with us, Andrew. Truly an honor and a pleasure. And again, we'll wrap it up here. If there's anything we didn't answer, feel free to reach out to our team. If you're interested in diving into this a little bit deeper, we have our 10-week XR developments with Unity course and our 8-week project Accelerator course for those advanced learners. So check it out. Next week, we got our VR Design Secrets workshop with Eric, who used to work with Microsoft and the Oculus team. That one will be super exciting. Feel free to register to that. And I'll be seeing you all hopefully next week or maybe with us in one of our courses. All the best, everyone. Thanks again for tuning in. Have a wonderful evening, morning, if you're still up abroad elsewhere. And hope to catch you again. Take care.